Hello, everyone. This is Adam Fishman, the Executive Director of American Friends of Likud, and I want to welcome you all once again to our AFL exclusive webinar series, exclusive insider briefings. And today we have our very good friend, since the time that he began in the Knesset a number of years ago, member of Knesset Amir Ohana. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Julio Messer, our board member from New York, who's going to give a formal introduction. We'll get to a member of Knesset Ohana's briefing and then to as many questions as we can in the short time that we have with him this evening or this morning, depending on where you are. I'll turn it over to you, Julio, and then we will take it from there.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Those of us who've been to Israel on AFL missions are very familiar with our friend, member of Knesset, Amir Ohana. For those who have not yet, a few introductory words about him. He is the son of Moroccan immigrants and was born in Beersheba. He served in the IDF as a road accident investigator in the military police, as a commander of the Carney crossing into Gaza, and as a commander of a military police base. After 6 years in the IDF, he served for another 6 years in the Shabak. After earning his law degree, he worked as a criminal lawyer for 10 years before entering politics. He was number 32 on the Likud list in the 2015 Knesset elections, which the Likud won with 30 seats. And Amir became an MK after the resignations of Dani Danon and Silvan Shalom. After the 2019 elections, he was appointed Minister of Justice, and after the 2020 elections, Minister of Internal Security. Since the 2021 elections and the formation of the Bennett-Lapid government, he has been sitting comfortably, or most likely uncomfortably, he'll tell us in a moment, in the opposition. Before I give you the floor, Amir, I'd like to urge you and all our listeners to read the statement of AFL President Jerry Platt in today's Arutz Sheva regarding President Trump's recent comments about Prime Minister Netanyahu. Amir, how's life as an opposition MK?
Well, thank you, Dr. Messer, for your introduction, and thank you, Adam, for facilitating this meeting. And of course, thanks to all of you joining us. It's been, I think, more than 2 years since last time well, actually more than 2 years since last time I visited America. And it's a very good opportunity for me to meet you and maybe answer a few of your questions and hear about US-Israel relations at this Biden administration era. Personal, it's very comfortable, yes, to be a member of the opposition. You know, after 2 terms as a minister of justice and minister of public security, it's the first time I could take a vacation and be with my kids. Some day-to-day life actions are possible, unlike when I was a minister, like charging my phone and leave it for 5 hours, not having to be online all the time. But you don't come into the public life for comfortness. So you want to influence and you want to change things, everyone by their political views and by their beliefs. And so we do look concerned into the current government, their actions, their deeds, their sayings. And this is something that worries me very much. Now, first, a few words. You mentioned the basic bios, but I have to maybe extend a few words about my term in the Shabak, in the Shin Bet. I served there during the second Intifada. It was one of the most challenging times that we have known. You all probably remember, I'm talking about the early 2000s. I'm talking about the buses exploding, restaurants, shopping malls, and many victims that we have known in that time. Now, one of our concerns at this time is exactly that, because I can smell, the the Oslo Accords were signed at 1993. And then in Israel, everyone were talking about peace, sang peace songs, and we all hoped and yearned that peace will come. But eventually it ended up with buses exploding and restaurants and everything that I was talking about. We had two very strong waves of terror. One is the 90s, and the second is the early 2000s. Now, prior to 1993, there was not one suicide bomber in Israel. The first one was actually in 1993. But by now we can count them by the hundreds, and of course the victims too. Now I have the Oslo fragrance as we speak, because when we hear a minister in the Israeli government, I'm talking about Isawi Frage, saying that his job is to revive the Oslo Accords. I'm going to revive them. This is what he says. And you know, we are currently experiencing a wave of terror. We don't know if it will go very high or it will end right now. But last week, or actually 2 weeks ago, we had a terrorist stabbing a walker by, you know, in Jerusalem, and two Magav border warriors shot him. Now, I think it was for the first time that a minister in the Israeli government said about that they should be investigated. Now, he tried to kill an Israeli. He almost did it. If they weren't there and shot him in a few seconds, I believe that we had at least one victim, probably more. And he's saying you should investigate them. They are the problem. It is very, very, very concerning when you hear him and Minister of Defense Benny Gantz and Minister of Health Nitzan Volvis pilgriming to Ramallah to meet Abu Mazen, Mahmoud Abbas. This is something that I sincerely am worried about, that we are going to see another attempt, foil attempt, to revive those terrible accords, and we're going to experience a new wave of terror. Now, this is my major concern, because I see the Islamization of the Arab community in Israel going very, very strong at this time when we have the Islamic movement, which is very similar to the Islamic Brotherhood as a part of this coalition for the first time ever in the history of Israel. This is what we are seeing. So yes, we are very concerned. We are very worried, and we didn't say a word about Iran. Iran, of course, being the major threat to Israel's security, to Israel's future, is going to have a new agreement, or at least so we are being told, or so we are seeing. The new American government, unlike when President Trump term, seeks to have an agreement with the Iranians, and not only that, taking off the sanctions will bring them closer to nuclear weapons, but also it will bring them closer to their precision project, which is a strategic threat to Israel, and the expansion in our region, which we are monitoring very, very worried about that. So yes, it's easier on the personal level to be a member of the opposition, but on the national level, we are worried, we're concerned, and we hope that this current government will fall as soon as possible so that we can have a better one, a national government taking us, like the last decade, that we have seen Netanyahu's leadership taking Israel to new places on every field, economy, foreign policies. We are currently with relations with more countries on the globe than ever before. We have seen in 1 year of Netanyahu's term, the last year, more and more peace treaties with Arab countries. We've seen Israel flourishing, and we hope to see that again. So with your permission,
since the time is short, why don't we get directly to, I know we already have a few questions. So Julia,
was
you want to start with the
exactly-
questions and we'll get to that.
This was exactly Adam, my next word. So please, the floor is yours.
Okay, so let me start with the first question. You mentioned Iran, which is the big problem. Caroline Glick wrote this week that the Israeli generals are finally awakening to the reality that when it comes to Iran's nuclear program, the Jewish state stands alone. We at AFL had shared with you and others over the years our almost certainty that no US president would ever attack the Iranian nuclear installations. Not Obama, not Trump, even after the elimination of Soleimani, and definitely not Biden. Do you think that Bennett, Lapid, and Gantz have finally awakened to this reality? And does the current government have what it takes, should it become really necessary, to go it alone?
I believe the answer is no. I don't think they have it. I don't think they have what it takes to take action, and I mean serious action, to stop the Iranian nuclear project. Throughout the years, there were quite a few attempts to do so. I think one of them was foiled by an American newspaper that got the word on advance, which of course foiled this action that we were considering doing. At least this is what we know through the media. No, they don't have it. I don't think that if it will take a military action, the current Israeli government has what it takes. My hope is that before Iran will conclude their nuclear project and maintain nuclear weapons, the government will change. And if we will be the ones to do so, I can assure you that we will do everything that is possible to stop this project. We consider Iranian getting a nuclear weapons as a major threat, an existential threat on the state of Israel. This is how we see it. I think Netanyahu demonstrated it in his term. He did everything possible to stop them, both actions that we know of and actions that we do not know of, even when it meant confronting the most powerful country in the world, our closest ally, that was and still will be our friend, hopefully forever, the United States of America. Coming to the American Congress and giving on March 15 and giving the speech that he did was a big deal. It was a very big deal, but he did it because he considered those agreements with Iran, the JCPOA, as dangerous as possible. So he wanted to stop it, and gladly it was successful. It took it took time, but the Trump administration did it. And we hope that no American administration would go back, taking off these sanctions on Iran until they will abandon the nuclear project and abandon their plans to destroy, to eliminate, to kill the state of Israel. This is what they openly say. It's not something that we know from intelligence, but from open sources. You can see it. They say it very openly. And based on the history of our people, the Jewish people, we need to take it very, very seriously.
Thank you. And let's talk now about what we've learned from President Trump's interview to Barak David. We at American Friends of Likud were fully aware of how Bibi had to resist tremendous pressures from Democratic Presidents Clinton and especially Obama to make dangerous and irreversible concessions to the Palestinians. What we were not aware of was that he also bravely resisted similar pressures from Republican President Trump. Were you also somewhat surprised? And more importantly, does the Israeli right now have a better appreciation for how hard Bibi had to fight for them all these years?
The answer is yes. I think more and more Israelis appreciate, and I'm talking mainly about the right-wing part of Israel. We have seen Yamina and Naftali Bennett and others attacking Netanyahu for not allowing, allegedly, President Trump to go further and further. But what we revealed at this time, and I have to say I wasn't surprised because I knew the actions that Bibi tried to do back at the time, that Netanyahu was the one trying to take these ideas further, but he was stopped because I don't think it was because of President Trump, but because of parts of his administration that pushed him away from moving towards annexation and other actions that I think are necessary. My view on peace is that it is inevitable, not only possible, but based on two major pillars. One is education, the second is economy. When I say first, let me go a few steps back. The Israeli-Arab conflict did not begin at 1967, which is why there is no reason to believe it will end if only we will withdraw to the 1967 borders, as some of my friends say, my left-wing colleagues say. Actually, we have two major parts of the Arab neighbors that we have. We have one, Hamas, which is totally clear that is devoted to the destruction of Israel and the killing of as many Jews as possible. If you would read Hamas covenant in section 7, you would find that they yearn to the day where the rocks and the trees would shout, "Oh, Muslim, there is a Jew behind me. Come, a Jew, mind you, not an Israeli. There is a Jew behind me, come and slaughter him." And they don't only say it, they demonstrate it by deeds. Some of the most horrific terror attacks that we have known throughout the years come from Hamas. But my colleagues from the left would say we do have the partners. We do have the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, the moderate ones that we can talk to. And one has to ask himself, when was this partner, this PLO, Palestinian Liberation Organization, founded? When was it established? And the answer is, of course, 1964, which is very interesting because there was not one Jewish settlement, there was not one Jewish soldier or settler on Judea and Samaria, or as my left-wing colleagues refer to, the West Bank. So what was it that they wanted to liberate Palestine from? Or rather, should we ask, what is Palestine? Is it really Ma'ale Shomron, Otniel, Efrat, and so on? Or is it really Yafo and Akko and Haifa and Tzfat and everything that we consider as the state of Israel? Now, my colleagues from the left would say, That was back in 1964. You're right. But this is 2021, coming to 2022. So they moved ahead. They are willing to compromise. Why won't you? But have they? Do they? Are they? Because when you, in every pro-Palestinian demonstration, both in America or Europe or wherever, you would still hear the same old slogan saying, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Now, you know the map. You know, this is the river, this is the sea, this is the state of Israel. So where does it put us? Taking swimming lessons, of course. So we are very, very worried about this government. We know that Israeli governments, when Ariel Sharon was prime minister and when Yitzhak Rabin was prime minister, did actions. Yitzhak Rabin, with the Oslo Accords, took a decision to import thousands of terrorists headed by Yasser Arafat that were haunted in Tunisia and wherever they were, and giving them, you know, an autonomy, saying, you want to rule yourselves, we want peace, so go ahead, form your own government, for your own police system, education system, judicial system, whatnot, and rule yourselves. And in return, we got not peace, but many, many dead, many graves, many sorrow, blood, and buses exploding. I mentioned it before. But you might say, you know, we are a smart people. We probably learned the lesson. And then came 2005 with a disengagement decision from Gaza. We have took everything out, saying, I'm quoting late Prime Minister Ariel Sharon, we have to end the occupation on Gaza. We took the soldiers out, we took the civilians out, we even took the dead out of their graves because we knew what would happen if we leave them there. What did we get in exchange? We didn't get the Singapore of the Middle East, as some expected, because they have a beautiful strip by the shore. They will build hotels, invest in education and healthcare and whatnot, like every normal people who wants to live does. What we did get is tunnels underneath our villages and missiles that will go further and further and kill more and more Israelis. So this government, which is based on Mansour Abbas and the Islamic movement and Meretz and Nitzan Horowitz and Tamar Zandberg and Michal Rozin and Ibtissam Marane with the labor, and all of those parts are an issue of great concern to the Israeli people and to the Israeli future. Yeah, I hope that concludes the answer.
A quick question, if I can.
I'm sorry, it doesn't, because I said that peace is inevitable based on two major pillars. So one is education. The incitement to terror has to stop. The glorification and naming of streets and buildings after terrorists has to stop. You know, the government building in Ramallah, the government building, not just a small alley, is named after Yahya Ayash, al-Muhandis, the engineer who is responsible for the killing of more than 100 Israelis, men and women and innocent men and children. This is who they named the government building after. You know, when I'm talking about economy, what we should see more is those industrial zones that we have in Barkan. We see thousands of Jews and Arabs living together, working together, sharing family pictures, having lunch together, congratulating each other for a newborn in the family. This is what we should see more. And this is what those who call themselves peace activists, they want to boycott. This is an absurd, based on those two major pillars, and understanding that we are here to stay. When I say here, I mean, yes, in Tel Aviv, in Haifa, in Hebron, wherever we are here to stay, because this is the cradle of our existence as a people. And with this, I will conclude my answer. back at 1921, the minister of the colonies for the British Empire came to visit Israel. His name was Sir Winston Churchill. Now, he wanted to see Tel Aviv, and Tel Aviv back then was a very young city. It had almost no floral. So Mayor Dizengoff, the mayor of Tel Aviv back then, wanted to impress Churchill. So he borrowed trees from the area and planted them on Rothschild Avenue. And Churchill came and he was amazed. He said, how miraculously the city has grown in such a short time. This is beautiful. This is amazing. And then, Mayor Dizengoff was very, very pleased that his plan works out. And then the wind began to blow. And some of the trees were falling. And Dizengoff was so embarrassed. He didn't know what to do because the scheme was revealed. But Churchill smiled and said, my dear Mr. Dizengoff, without roots, nothing will grow here. And when I say roots, I mean the history of our people. I'm not a very religious person, probably not the most religious person in the Knesset, but I am very, very, very well connected to the history of our people and the legacy of our people. And when I open the book that tells our story, the Bible, and I find that more than 80% of locations stated as the land of Israel are located in Judea and Samaria, I understand where my roots are.
I want to get to a quick question from the floor and also ask you about the state of the Likud party as it stands today. But before we get to that, there's a question from Isaac Glassman, one of our President Club members, about, we mentioned it earlier, our President Jerry Platt wrote an op-ed that was published today in Arutz Sheva. Has there been any fallout from Donald Trump's criticism of Netanyahu as disloyal? Is there any eroding of impact and his stature among the Israeli right? And with that, if you could tell us about the state of the Likud party itself and where it's headed. Okay, and with your permission, with that, we will also conclude our short and interesting discussion. So I think what we revealed in Barak Ravid's writings is that President Trump was very upset with Netanyahu congratulating President Biden for his elections, but he was not, like was said there, he was not the first one. He actually was very criticized for not congratulating Biden within Israel. Israel said, we understand that you are friends with Trump. This is good. This is okay. But you should congratulate President-elect Joe Biden. And he did that. It was probably the 20th heads of state to do so. But he demonstrated that the state of Israel and the connections between those two countries, between those two allies, are more important for him than his personal friendship with President Trump. Now, it may made President Trump upset, but I think there was another talk between Barak Ravid and President Trump. It was a phone call talk, and he was much more supportive of Netanyahu on the second talk, and Barak Ravid was surprised because I think that those two figures do share a lot of understandings about the world and about the relations of the two countries that has to be always strong, and we need them to be as strong as possible, which is why we are doing our best to keep in touch with the political figures of both parties, because we want it as a bipartisan relations. So I think Netanyahu did the right thing, congratulating President Biden for the sake of the relations between Israel and America. And I think now, I'm not in touch by all means with President Trump, but I think now even President Trump understands that. Within Likud,
I think Netanyahu's leadership is very, very firm. Yes, there are others who see themselves as fit to come into his shoes, but gladly, I don't think he's going anywhere. I think he's staying. He understands the importance of his leadership at this time, and I do think that it is very important for him to stay for many various reasons, which we won't get into right now. But I have many talks with Netanyahu, and my understanding is that he is very firm and very decisive about staying and taking charge of the state of Israel, leading its government once again. I hope that it will come very soon. Ve'imru amen.
And with that, I want to thank you, Amir, and I want to thank you, Julio, for joining us, and everyone who's joined us this evening. We are still planning and very optimistic about traveling with our group, our delegation,
That would be
finally
great.
back to Israel at the end of February. And we hope to have the opportunity to come to the Knesset and visit with you again.
So sooner than next year in Jerusalem is better. And I'm looking forward to see you guys. Thank you all.
Very good.
Have a
Thank
great,
you very much,
great
Amir.
day.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Be well. Stay healthy.
Bye.